either one of these two games that we've had so far has went down to heal off. So it's kind of giving you more and more of that confidence, like, hey, I can stay a little bit longer in towards zone. I can try to figure out Storm Surge, especially if you're uncontested like they are. You can always go back for those extra heals. As OXR HQ, just as busy as we last left it. Pixie, Marius, and Vanya, they kind of got a huge base, basically a 3-room apartment. Everybody gets their own bathroom. They're just kind of replenishing a lot of those builds that they used to get there. You see the extra heals in and outside of their base, and they're just a hop, skip, and a throw away from the actual zone. The only thing that we do not know yet, Taco, is do they see Peterbot, Ritual, and Colt? Do they know that team is there?
They're likely pretty aware that there's somebody lurking. Whether they know that it's Peterbot, Cold, and Ritual directly, that'll have to be answered later on. But Victor V, Epic Whale, Paper, they diverted that initial path, and they find themselves directly underneath Reed, Curly, and Cooper, trying to see if they can apply some pressure, get a little bit of damage going. But Victor V gonna get the worst end of that trade out. And Epic Whale still looking to provide a little bit of coverage. They've just infiltrated the base that Reed, Cooper, and Curly once held.
Yeah, I like the decision, though, for Reed, Cooper, Curly. They saw the zone kind of pull towards the south, a little bit further from where they're at. They say, hey, we got to focus on this. Agers, Acorn, Poyo. This time around, they're getting to play their side of the overall map. We're seeing it pulling towards the south, but Demon's Debris kind of just on the outskirts inside of the zone. So they're watching and seeing every team that rotates on over from that mountain. You got to think Alex and Nam resides there towards the south of that mountain. Toyota, Rise, Yuma, they landed over at Canyon. So they're just trying to take advantage of every team that might not be quick to the punch.
But it's still crazy to see that quick stat for Acorn's team, that they didn't take a single tick of Surge all throughout the regular season majors. But here on the global level, they have been struggling back-to-back matches, finding a good grasp of that Surge damage threshold. Right now, Game 3 though, halfway point technically speaking for day one. They had the opportunity. We just saw what Prodoxy, Pablo, and Chino were able to accomplish in that last lobby. When you're able to secure over 80 points in a singular match, you're still always in the running.
Yeah, on pace. Outside of maybe getting that victory royale where you do get the 9 extra points going from second to first place. So all you need is, a win, but 10 eliminations, that's about a 105 game. Close the gap in an instant. We already saw that out of a few teams so far. Pixie, Marius, and Vanya, they're just rotating all around. You saw them go from OXR HQ. They took that massive launch pad with the Flowberry Fizz to take over the Shining Span Bridge, prioritizing their rotation. Not really worrying about anybody else that's there, as Victor V, Epic, they're still here, but Cold is the one that's down. So Peterbot and Retro got the pressure on their shoulders.
Tragedy there for Pablo as he's fully cleaned up too. So that's going to be a wipeout for Prodoxy's team. They'll have to sit and deliberate, figure out what they want to do for Game 4 instead. But Ritual and Peterbot still trying to work side by side. The problem is they are so split from each other, Jacob. The moment that Yamzo, Flix, or Higgs might realize, hey, there's a primed up opportunity here to just outright key, but doesn't seem as if they're aware of that situation just yet.
And already we saw Cooper, Reed, and Curly try to rotate on out. But now they're running into a whole nother team, and Cooper's going to be the first one dropped. That's Snowy. Todd is still alive. Even though they do lose one, they have a numbers advantage. They can play for the revive, and I think Reed might know that just a little bit, trying to go for pressure underneath, break it through the walls. Beast Control does not go over. They do a quick peek. Both teams kind of missing those shots, though. Reed has to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. They are inside of the zone, so in theory, Taco, Ryu, Snowy, and Todd have no reason to rotate out.
That little bit of a whip, though, from Reed might come back to haunt him here because Todd, Snowy, and Ryu in that 3 versus 1. This is so optimal for them to continue to apply steady pressure. They recognize Reed has no other choice except to try and live, to try and escape, and they are just ripping him apart from the sky. Every single crash pad, sure, it's taking them one step further, but fortunately for Reed, Marius, Pixie, and Vanya provide a little bit of that buffer zone. They're going to force Sod and Ryu back, but Reed, he is still pinned down, stuck along the peach face underneath Shining Span. Yeah, it don't miss you wonder, like, does he even have a singular reboot card, let alone 2? He really had no choice but to disengage out of there because they will try to push a solo in that situation. But Malibuca walks, pings, 25 points through 2 games so far. A couple teams need to go down, about 7.
he can start getting some of those placement points. But for now, they're just kind of focusing on one thing and one thing only, Storm Surge. That's going to open up the world in terms of flexibility the later this game goes on.
And this time, Malibuca's team not being third-partied now means that they've got a little bit more of that luxury room to try and get their Surge locked in, going up against Yapko and Panzer in a separate Surge base. Good ways across from them. Yuma, Koyota, and Grise, though, we saw the success they finally had with taking care of Veno's team, and now the question becomes, can we see a Ferdoxy Tayson type of performance? Can they convert this to a strong endgame finish?
Hey, you know the entire region usually kind of has some tricks underneath their sleeve that they save for big moments just like this. Swizzy, Queasy, Merstad, they're just making their way on over towards that bunker. They're one of the few teams in the lobby because they're uncontested at the Hive. They get that instant OXRHQ rank, and that is what they're able to use to kind of rotate on over to the vault and get some sort of exotic. You already see it's going to be the AR in Swizzy's inventory. And if you guys don't know, every shot you land with that AR, the next one just deals more and more damage. And putting it in Swizzy's hand, honestly, is very, very scary for the rest of the lobby.
And looted and booted, that is for sure. Merstash, Swizzy, Queasy, they've got so much time to work with in comparison to a lot of these other teams that are likely feeling a bit more pressured, a bit more pushed into trying to create, manifest some sort of surge damage just to be able to find the same type of rotates. But Queasy, we'll have to see what he gets up to later on, because we know they love to look for height, and they are setting up very early on, Jacob, strong loadouts to take over.
A tough situation, depending on where the zone continues to go for a lot of these teams towards the south. They're trying to make this part of the map their home base and kind of wait for a lot of the teams towards the north, towards the west to start to try and rotate in. Kanata, Bolts, and Rapid, almost 700 damage above the threshold. Now they're going to surpass that with a couple shots being landed. And they're just peeking through the cone right now. They already are in zone. They're just trying to figure out how many teams are around them, what teams are there as well, and what teams are rotating in. Ritual, Cold, Peterbot, that's going to be one that they focus on for a quick and short moment, landing some damage on the Ritual, forcing them down further towards their glide, just kind of making sure they can't get priority position.
The real trick in a set lobby like this, though, is finding those shots, but not receiving any in return. Peterbot, Ritual, Cold, though, they've got to take this fight up against Tate and Raito. They need a recovery point. They've managed to bring Cold back off the reboot, but this is a fight that they're going to have to optimally turn into their favor. It's a little bit scattered right now, but they're just so low on that surge. They don't have any other options. They have to keep trying to apply pressure, but they might not get the chance. The surge is going to take care of them alongside Raito. Just an easy come up.
I am at a loss for words. After 3 games so far, they have failed to place inside of the top 17. That's where those placement points begin. They are in 31st place on the leaderboard, and it can only get worse if any of those 2 teams below them are still alive. But from the bottom side to the top side, Swizzy, Queasy, and Merstash, that's going to be one thing, because they see every single player that goes down. They see every single trio that gets eliminated, and when you see them go down for Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstash, even Clixy, Yamzo, and Higgs, that's got to be a confidence boost.
Everybody just looking like a rags to riches comparison from what we just witnessed, but Yamzo, Clicks, Hips, they're still trying to take advantage of their convenient positioning here. They're spraying all of these teams that are just stuck on the congestion inside that edge of zone, teams that are fighting to try and lock in a little bit more surge, and Phaser, he is going to fall. Yamzo, a little bit too accurate, and Clicks just still continuing steady pressure application. These teams are not able to escape.
Yeah, I think they saw it at the corner of the eye, and they're not going down. A whole nother team, but they know if they can continue to focus in that direction, they can probably try to get the wipe. But on high ground, we're finally getting that peak. Poyo, Agers, and Acorn, but they're 69 damage below the threshold, which is surprising because we're at the Kappa factory towards the south side of the map. They have been granted the zone majority of this game, but just unable to really find the shots to put it to use, and they're falling further and further below.
They've got to be real careful here. Team sitting inside the building, and Agers just doesn't care. Mountain gonna be immediately eliminated. Just a max pop Tough shot. Pollo now looking to follow suit here. They are feeling so confident. They know they got Goopy locked in their sights, and Agers finds the next elimination. There's their surge at last.
Locked and loaded, ready to go. And this is a team right here, right? When you got Pollo on this team, when you got Agers on this team, Acorn, debatably one of the best IGLs in Fortnite, them going down early, that's like poking the bear. That's like poking the bear in the wilderness. Now something I would never do, and now they're here in this game, and they're out for redemption.
The problem right now that I'm thinking about, Jacob, is Queasy loves to look for height right around this period, right around that 8th zone time frame. But with Acorn now looking much healthier, and a mastermind IGL in his own right, you have to anticipate that there's going to be a very strong challenge for height between those two teams. And that's not even considering other trios in the lobby like Vanya, Marius, Pixie, all of these experienced veterans that know full well what type of potential high ground holds, especially with the zones falling over this part of the map. It is a very strong pinpoint location. So many teams are going to have to burn through materials in those lower layers.
Yeah, and you can kind of see in the minimap, majority of the teams, even with the zone currently opening up, are like on that 50, where the half and half actually was. And even further south, nobody really wanted to make that move, because you know as well as I do, inadvertently with the crash pass, Flowberry Fizz, it just makes you an open target. A Savage Chat reads, and they're getting a little bit more aggressive, trying to take advantage of Merim, Wuyu Ryu. They're underneath as well. I think Wixie might still be alive. Nope, saw it in the feed. Queasy's gonna take him down, so Savage Chat, Reason, even with 2 eliminations, almost 900 damage above the threshold. They're feeling good.
Agers, Pollo, Acorn, depending on which direction they head next. I was going to say they might need to be wary of Mr. Savage's team, but instead it's going to be secondary height as the focal point. They're just getting sprayed out, though. Their builds not being allowed to fully lock through. Yuma, Grise across the way, but no! We thought those 2 eliminations that Agers just secured would be enough, but the surge threshold, they just climbed to such a high level, Jacob. They're still sitting 99 below. Even with 3 eliminations, finally they're going to tick over into just 3 above, but it's still not enough. They can't find a footing until they get more surge.
They are just burning through materials. Even with that elimination on the reset, they are not going to be able to get a lot of that loot. It's going to go to the wayside, and now they have to worry about their rotation, feeding them the punch. Arc Skull and Salco, they might be below the damage threshold, but Pollo, Agers, Acorn focusing on this rotation because they know it's not going to get easier. In fact, only 7 builds onto Agers. It's going to get harder and harder unless they find that key refresh.
But look at Arc School and Salco. They're a little bit beat up here. Still, Mr. Savage, Champ, Frieza, and they're immediately trying to cut straight to the front side of zone. Might have been a little
Ja, moet ik daar nou niet bewegen als ik het goed doe? Mika had deze gekregen. Wacht. Dit had Mika gekregen vandaag. Ja, hij had die gekregen uit zijn eerste.